meeting of Owen Sound City Council. It's good to see so many people out on such a cold night tonight, and I'm sure with the temperatures we're having, we'll probably have snow around Owen Sound until, I hate to think, June. But it's good to see so many people here. We have completed our in-camera meeting for this evening, and we are now in regular council meeting. I would invite Reverend Bland, there he is, to come forward and bring us your special greeting from St. George's Anglican Church, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your worship and members of council, greetings. Theodore Ruffke, a poet from Saginaw, just across the lake, wrote, "In a dark time, the eye begins to see." Oh, I need to press that, should I? So Ruffke wrote, and he's a neighbor of ours from Michigan. In a dark time, the eye begins to see. So on a day when the rigors of elected office are challenging the world's leaders to seek a path to peace rather than violence in the Ukraine, on a day when other rulers continue to oppress and abuse their populations through brutal regimes and authoritarian states where people have no voice, on a day when 75 years ago today, Mohandas Gandhi began to fast in protest against autocratic rule in India. As you debate here, be blessed with wisdom that knows we are all in this together. If you speak, be empowered with humility also to listen, to hear the indispensable value of other voices and perspectives than your own. When you disagree, be filled with the capacity to hold tension in life-giving ways between your own views and the views of others. Take courage, too. Be inspired and emboldened with enough chutzpah to voice your deepest convictions and then to act in accordance with them. Be together as partners who are learning how to build community in ways that enrich and ennoble our common life. Abraham Lincoln famously observed that the dangers to our democracy come more from within than from without. So in this city, may we repair and strengthen democracy's oft-neglected foundations, the invisible dynamics of the human heart, and the visible venues of our lives where those dynamics are formed. May this city council be marked by a movement of the heart that turns suffering into community, conflict into the energy of creativity, and tension into an opening toward the common good. Peace be with you in your deliberations tonight. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional items from any member of council? Councillor Body.
I think Councillor Adair and I want to tag team on reporting on the Ontario Arts Council Queen's Park Arts Day that went on last week that we were both involved in on behalf of organizations from within the city.
Thank you. Ms. Corsi.
Thank you, Your Worship. When we get to minutes for the Operations Advisory Committee, we are pulling the one report on LED lighting.
Okay. Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I have two matters, one pertaining to specialized transit, the other pertaining to the oncology restoration at the Grey Goose Regional Health Center.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, any disclosure of pecuniary interests? Councillor Twaddle?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be disclosing a pecuniary interest with regards to, and I've lost it here, with regards to the letter to the hospital regarding the oncology funding, and apparently also with regards to Councillor Lemon's additional item.
Okay. Any other members of council? Councillor Dare.
Yes, I do. And 12B11 in regards to International Fiddle Day, as my employer will be providing insurance and that for the event.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, moving along, confirmation of the minutes, please, from February 10th.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Adair, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on February 10th, 2014, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Minutes from the public meeting respecting the 2014 city budget, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Adair, that the minutes of the public meeting respecting the 2014 city budget held on February 10th, 2014, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. A resolution moving council and committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Adair, that the City Council now go into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We're now in Committee of the Whole. We do have a public meeting this evening. This is a public meeting, a notion of intent to declare surplus and dispose of municipal property. This is the referring specifically to the Courthouse and Jail. And I'll ask for comments, please, from the City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll advise Council that notice of this meeting was published in the Sun-Times on February the 21st. It was also posted on the city's website and provided to the tenants of the old courthouse by the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism. This is respecting the declaration of surplus land and disposing of municipal property forming the former jail and courthouse on 3rd Avenue East. The notice does include a key map. Members of the public were invited to comment on the proposed declaration of surplus and disposal of land. No comments were received respecting the notice prior to the agenda being published. There was one comment received in writing on Friday, February the 27th, after the agenda was published. This was from Patty Waterfield. The comment was circulated to members of council and the media and will be available as part of the agenda when it's republished tomorrow. And there have been no other comments other than that at this time. With respect to the meeting this evening, personal information collected is collected under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001. It is being collected to be used to complete the disposal of surplus land process, and it will form part of the public record. And if anyone has questions about that collection, they can be addressed to myself, the City Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. And comments from Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to follow up the clerk's comments, we gave notice of our intent to declare the building surplus by placing notices in the paper, posting them on the door of the court building and jail, and by placing it on the website. There were 2 media interviews given, and there has been media coverage. We did say, as council directed, a note should have been given to the tenants. We did that, although it was later than we intended. This note gave not so much the same information that was on the notice, but also to clarify that the building has not been sold, that this is just part of the process. The intention is to move forward to market the building. I have been marketing the building softly, so to speak, for a number of years. And to date, I still haven't had a second return phone call. Having said that, I have received a couple other emails from tenants, and I responded back and offered to meet with them, both individually and collectively, because I think some of them have some great ideas, whether to pass those on to someone who's interested in the building, or if the building is sold, to assist them in the future. The building does need repair and will need significant investment shortly. I believe that's best done under a different ownership model. There are some other funding models. I was speaking to a particular group today for potential purchasers. Anyway, that's my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. And now I'll open the floor if we have any comments from any members of the public who are here on this matter this evening. Yes, if you could come up to the podium, and if you just tell us your name and your address. It goes into the public record for the clerk's minutes.
Thank you. My name is Patty Waterfield, and I am a tenant at the old courthouse as an artist. My address is 2469 3rd Avenue East in Owen Sound. And I was actually very concerned about this notice that went up. There was nothing told to the tenants when we saw the notice go up a week ago. One notice on the door of the courthouse. There are many tenants in that courthouse using it as studios, and a lot of musicians that are working in there. This is a place of work for a lot of us. It's not just a recreational building. That's my main reason for being here, is to just make people aware that that building is being used and has been used for many years. And it happened really fast. There was no time for us to get together. I would have had a bigger group of people here perhaps. We've done our best to try to get some letters in, some to the city clerk and also a couple to Mr. Furness. And another thing that concerned me was that there's a bit of, I guess, a misconception over a term that is being used. We have been referred to as short-term tenants a lot. And the misconception here is that we might have short-term leases, but a lot of us are not short-term tenants. I probably have the shortest time in there, which is 2 years. But there are people in there that have been in there for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So I think that maybe a little bit of care could be taken in how we are being perceived, and for the rest of the public as well. And the building was known as a community arts building, and it has been used for that for, I think, about 20 years. I mean, I'm a newcomer in Owen Sound, but that is a building that I did hear about. And coming here as an artist, I don't work at a 9-to-5 job. I'm an artist. That's how I work. And that was a place that was recommended to me to get a studio at. And I was, was sort of pleased that there was a building like that in Owen Sound. And Owen Sound is known as a strong arts community. The music here is fantastic. There's tons of artists, there's writers, along, with everybody else, which is what makes it such a fantastic community. And I love it. And my partner and I moved here 2 years ago, actually because we knew it was a strong community in that way, that it encompassed the arts as well. And so I would just like maybe, the members of council and the mayor to take into consideration that there are many other cities in Canada that preserve their historical buildings with the vision of arts. And there are many examples that are out there. The models that exist that I know of are the Artscape buildings in Toronto, because that's where I come out of, is Toronto. The Tremont in Collingwood is a fantastic example. There's the Alton Mills Arts Center in Alton Mills. 401 Richmond was also, it's a historical building, and that got taken over, and that's really well. That's actually a mixed facility where there's cafes, there's boutiques, there's music, there's art studios, there's a community, there's children's daycare. There's a lot one can do if you can just think a little bit forward. And I know money is an issue, but there could be partners found. And we have received, myself and the other artists that sent in letters, a letter from Mr. Furness to say that we will, that he's willing to meet to hear our ideas. And we're very pleased with that. So we welcome this. However, we're looking for commitment and leadership from the council to actively explore options to find creative ways to preserve historical buildings and to support the arts together so we can go forward on this together. And that's what I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your comments. Are there any other members of the public here this evening who would like to comment on this particular issue? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mark Gaveler, and I'm at 848 9th Street A East. It seemed fitting for me to come at this particular moment right after our last speaker. I stood here more than 20 years ago in support of a proposal to begin an arts group of exactly the same kind that was spoken of. There you are. And I'm delighted that it's still as active as it seems to be. The other part of our reason for making this proposal, and it was to, just for exactly that, to house artists of any kind, visual artists, musicians, whatever, to provide an economical place for them to have their studios. But the other reason for us bringing the proposal that we did was to save the courthouse from the kind of development that was proposed at the time. There was one developer who wanted, I think he actually bought the building, or was about to, in the process of, and he wanted to make a residence, an apartment building. The problem was, what he wanted to do was to divide in half the courtroom, which we were appalled at. I mean, that is a beautiful courtroom. Whoops. And to have it divided in half, you know, two floors, in that we thought was unthinkable. So, as I say, part of our reason for making the proposal was to save it from that kind of development. So, yes, the city did agree at the time to lease it to the group. It was the Arts Council, Great Arts Council at the time. And as a committee of the Arts Council was a management committee that looked after the building and rented the space and made the policies and so on. And there were wonderful performances that took place in that building. It was called the Old Courthouse Arts Building, and it was an amazing place. So my concern also, of course, is the heritage of the city. And if the building were to be sold, I would want some assurance that it would not be, well, desecrated, was one word I could use. Fortunately, since the Old Courthouse Arts Building first started, the facade, I believe, and the courtroom were designated. So as far as I know, those two parts of the building are designated, which, yes, should help, although I sometimes wonder whether that is absolute protection or not, but I want to make sure everybody knows that. The old courthouse is 150 years old. It was built in 1853. And it has an important history in Owen Sound. I think the first meeting of City Council, of Owen Sound City Council, took place in that building. And it was the courthouse for Owen Sound for years. In fact, I think it was still used as a courthouse. As a matter of fact, I know it was when I first came to Owen Sound, because I can remember one time when I was charged with driving too close behind or something, and I appeared in that courtroom. So I know it was still used, and the police services were there and so on. So it is an important part of Grey County and Owen Sound history, and that should be remembered. And knowing what happened to the Queen's Hotel, I do not want that to happen to the courthouse. So I urge council to be very careful in what you do with that building, to whom you might sell it. My preference, of course, would that it stay in the public domain and be used as a community center of various kinds, and that would be my preference. So that's my story, and I needed to say
And you're
it.
sticking to it.
Yeah, I am sticking to it.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. Certainly, yes, please step forward if you were coming to speak to this. You jumped up. It's all yours.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My perspective is completely different.
Yes.
I just in the location part.
If you could just say your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the
Yeah,
record,
my name
please,
is Faith Leach. I live at 1275 3rd Avenue East, directly to the north left of the complex. First of all, I'd like to say I'm pleased with the support from the courthouse occupants. You know, we live right against this building, this complex. I knew that there were artists, but we seldom see anybody. So I had no idea this community was as large as it was. Yeah, I had no idea. They're also, I guess, very quiet, and that's why we don't know they're there. Occasionally we see the parking lot in the courthouse filled, and we realize something must be happening, but we really weren't aware. So it was 1960 when the courthouse moved to the new location on top of the hill. And when that happened, of course, the County of Grey, as the owner, had stipulated that at that point, March 11th, 1960, that's when the city had to buy the courthouse from the county, with the stipulation that eventually, when the courthouse was, the jail section was no longer needed by the County of Grey, the city had to buy that as well. And that should have happened in 1976, but when the province took over the county jails. But at least the situation continued till December the 4th of 2011, and now the city owns the jail as well. My concern is that over the years, we could not get the city to enforce their bylaws, and as a result, we suffered greatly. Now, as of December the 4th, 2011, we are free of that. So we are very happy people. However, now that we might be moving into a new phase, which would mean possibly another owner, my concern is what could happen? Could this be a case of the new owner could just do whatever they like? Would they also, because of all the bylaws that were violated, would the city of Owen Sound now say to the new owner, you have to do them? Or if the city remains the owner of the property, does the city have any obligation to now fulfill the bylaws? This is something I'd like to know very much about, because we are so adversely affected by this complex. They are right, we share the common lot line. And this has been a very hard situation for us for years, for 27 years. We came there in 1987 with the understanding that this was the city's jail and that it would be closed in 2 years. That didn't happen. In fact, what happened was it got designated as a maximum security facility, and we started seeing the most horrendous situation happening beside us, especially after the courthouse was leased to the council, Arts Council. The jail lost their entrance to the jail through the courthouse. At that time, they just took all of their business and put it around to the side door. And I think, and this is where my heritage idea is, they started to do things to the building that I'm sure were not allowed on a heritage basis, chipping away at window sills and all kinds of other stuff. In the meantime, as everyone knows, this facility has really gone downhill, not just the courthouse. One of the big issues right now for us, I mean, when I say for us, I mean not me personally, there are walls, 15-foot limestone walls around the jail. They were actually added 12 years after the jail opened because people were escaping out the back. This was not a good idea, I guess. So they built the walls, but they didn't make them out of block like they made the courthouse. They made them out of pieces of limestone, and they were cemented together, and eventually, over time, the cement falls out. So the jail, the province did purge and put things back together, However, now you've got several sections about 10 feet in diameter that the parging has fallen out of. Birds are nesting in the sections already. And in time, because it's water damage, as well as wind and everything else, you're going to find holes appearing in that, like large holes in the walls, which I don't know what liability issues, because that's another thing, this property is not secured. And the people in our whole area use both sides of the complex to get to, from 3rd and 4th, back and forth. So they're in that area all the time. Children are coming in and playing right there because it's not secured. So this could be an issue for the city involved that we're concerned about. And we're wanting to see what happens now, whether the city keeps ownership or sells, and what control does anybody here in the city have about who comes into who buys the property? If they come in, like Greg Santini wanted to very much put a museum in the place, but he had no money. So if he bought the place and then can't find the funds, where does that leave the city?
There's a lot of that going around.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if that happens and he doesn't, whoever gets the property decides, oh dear, that's too much money, and either disappears or does not do what's necessary, will the city end up with the property again in even worse condition, and now what? So I'm just wondering, does the public have any input in who buys the place?
We're here to listen tonight,
Yeah.
and we're hearing your input tonight, so
Yeah.
this
I would
is,
very
this is
much,
why we're here.
I am.
We
I'd
want
like to know
hear.
answers to that. Like, you know, if the public, not just me, sees what's going on, that somebody's going to buy, we understand whoever's going to buy this has not really got the best intentions.
We,
What do we do then?
we'll, everything that you're saying is being recorded,
Yeah.
and we'll take all of these things into consideration. We're a long way from that point.
Yeah, I
yet.
know this is going to be a very difficult property, obviously, as you've seen.
It is a
over the years.
designated property.
Yeah, and designated. Now, as Mrs. Gavler was saying, the courthouse is the facade in the courthouse. Is that all that's designated?
There are components, but the interior of the building, from our understanding, has been fairly well dismantled already. So it's predominantly the exterior
Yeah.
and the shape of the windows and so on that is left.
Okay, so someone could come in and basically gut it? And
Well, at this time, I wouldn't want to make any suggestion as to
No.
what might happen with the building. We're really here to hear public comment and to understand better,
Yeah.
what people in the community are thinking and what their thoughts are around this.
Would they be able to comment? Like, say, for instance, it was found out someone bought it, and they wanted to gut it, say, for instance, to a certain
Throughout the
extent.
planning process, there's always opportunities to discuss,
Yeah.
speak to zoning, to speak to how the property is going to be used and so on. So of course, there's ample opportunities along the way. And as I said, we're really, I think, quite a distance away from that
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Was there any other sort of final comments that you wanted to make?
No.
I'm just looking at the time, and there are others who would
Yeah.
like to speak.
Mostly just just plead, I guess you'd say, that the city look at the whole situation, first of all, for our community. Because one of the reasons why we bought our house is because, although we saw the complex, it looked very benign. We thought, because we were told it was in 2 years it'll be gone, we thought we were going to be moving into another situation, like I see in different, like some of the places they're talking about, where the property's being just upgraded and become a beautiful community asset and a vibrant community, and we thought that was what was going to happen. And when it didn't, we were very upset about it almost, because we thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice to live near this? So that's why we bought, that's part of the reason we bought this house. So we would like to see this happen, to see it not deteriorate into something like, oh, great, housing that's not, well, apartments that aren't going to service the whole feel of the place. And of course, to lose our vibrant arts community would be a terrible shame. So,
We can agree on a number of things there, actually, Ms. Leach.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Is there any other folks here this evening? Please just step forward and give your name and address. And
Thank you. My name is Rob Rolfe, and I live at 2469 3rd Avenue East. My partner spoke earlier, and I wasn't planning to say anything, but I listened to these discussions, and it seems to me that Owen Sound just won an award, did it not, for cultural heritage preservation of buildings. And like my partner, I've been very excited to move here. 2 years about we've been here, and love the city. It's an exciting place to be. But I will say that the one thing I've heard most often about the city from those who have been disappointed on issues like this is that the city, and I heard it after that award came out, they say, well, isn't it ironic? We win an award, and yet I know the Branningham Grove, what happened up there. There's been the CN station. There's this building. And I also know, like, it's not so easy to just, like, you have to balance budgets, and that's probably what's behind all of this. But what I'd like to say is the thing I've heard so often is lack of vision. And some of the people I've met in the town since I've got here, I won't name the names or anything, but they've said, it's not enough just to preserve buildings. Everybody'd like to preserve the buildings, but it costs money to do it and it costs money to maintain it. But if there were a vision to go forward, preserving the buildings, but keeping in mind the past of Owen Sound doesn't solve the future, and there needs to be some vision of where this links into the needs of the community today, where jobs are scarce and it's sort of tough in some areas. So all I really had to say here tonight beyond that was I hope that, I know about the letters that went back and forth, I hope in the discussions that follow that there's a real attempt by, I don't know if it's council or staff, but to engage the artists and really look for ideas that would address what the previous woman spoke about, what's going to happen there, and what you, Mayor Haswell, just said about what might happen to the building. Because with some creative ideas, some of these problems that exist with the older buildings and their deterioration might be used as part of a larger vision to help this city and help mend some of the bad feelings that I've seen going on about the preservation of buildings and the destruction of buildings. There could be something in it for everybody if enough creative minds are brought to bear. So that's it.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any further comments from anyone here this evening on this matter? Okay. Thank you very much. In terms of next steps, could I ask the clerk what are the next steps for members of the public that are here this evening, just to have a better understanding where we're headed now? Excuse me, Mr. Furness can speak to this better.
So it won't be, it might be beneficial for council to give another 2 weeks to receive comments, and then at that point we come forward with declaring it surplus if that was a decision of council. Receiving more comments and more time to listen is not an issue at all.
It's interesting, some of the very comments that we heard this evening are the very reasons why we need to get that particular building properly looked after and properly preserved and protected. This council's recognizing its own limitations, and yet, sir, many of us on this council do have a vision for the use of heritage buildings and heritage features going forward, and I would respectfully offer that this is one of those very difficult decisions that this council has been faced with and is faced with in order to actually preserve our heritage. We simply must find a very willing partner to take on that building. So I thank you for your comments tonight, and we will move along. This isn't an official public meeting. This is more of an unofficial public meeting in terms of the process and the building and the sensitivities around heritage. So I thank all of you who came to speak to this for your comments tonight. And as Mr. Furness said, please feel free to continue providing those comments in the days and weeks ahead. I'll invite Donald Anderson and Jackie Ralph of the Inclusive Communities Committee, and this is an update on the 2014 Grey Bruce One World Festival. And good evening, Mr. Anderson and Ms. Ralph.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may recognize, my name is Donald Anderson, and my partner is Jackie Ralph. And as the Mayor said, we are here representing the One World Festival, a celebration of diversity in both Grey and Bruce counties. The One World Festival is a program of the Inclusive Communities Committees in cooperation and partnership with Communities Grey Bruce. Jackie will talk a little bit about our history of our One World Festival.
The Inclusive Communities Committee started to work together in 2005 to address racism and discrimination and try and build a more inclusive Grey and Bruce. We held 2 successful Weaving Our Communities, one at the Outdoor Education Center, one at the Bay Shore, and then we've had various workshops around different workplaces about the benefits of creating such a community. And we held our first One World Festival in 2011. So the basis of the One World Festival was to create that event that would build respectful relationships and foster the development of inclusive communities, ideally through a month-long celebration of diversity throughout Grey and Bruce, not just at the event itself. Our objective was to engage diverse groups, which you know we all have here across Grey Bruce, as well as businesses, schools. We have the French school here, agencies and communities. We wanted to raise awareness in our community, build skills and capacity around that, and just celebrate the diversity that we have. Our measurable outcomes that we've had in the 4 years, we've been able to maintain as well as increase the attendance each time over the 4 years, which is great. We had over 800 students show up last year, as well as members of the public and over 70 different agencies that took part in some form. We had displays that people could visit and learn about different things from around our region. And we had, of course, outstanding art, music, dance, drama, history, poetry, and I believe there was a puppet show. Immeasurable outcomes, we were able to bring broad community engagement and support to the event. We had enthusiasm, dialogue, and very much learning about each other at the festival. And of course, everybody just kept saying, please do it again. So as you can see, we had some wonderful dancing going on. There's May, there's the a band that was there that took everybody out of the tent and we danced outside in the parking lot instead. We had music. There's the Gypsy Jive Band, the choir from Bayview, which was excellent. We had the Grey Bruce singers. Here's some art. We brought some to show and tell. Not just in the pictures. There's the mandala that we did. Of course, diversity is a big one. It's all about engaging each other in dialogue. Especially our children, because they're our next generation. They're the ones that are going to shape the diversity and the history and culture. And of course, community engagement. Oh, and there's that puppet show I was talking about. Oh, look at that. So, I'm going to pass it back to you.
This year, our One World Festival is going to be held on Friday, May 23rd. We'll be hosting it at the Market Square in conjunction with the Union Library and the Tom Thompson Art Gallery. We will be celebrating our diversity from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And we'll also be hosting an evening event from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. During the daytime, we hope to celebrate with our school children visiting, with our local businesses downtown, and our visitors to our downtown core. The evening event will be hosting a group called Gotta think about this. Envirodrum, which is a percussion and vocal group, and they present a very interesting show. They present their instruments and their vocals by using recycled products, using metals and glass and plastics to create their percussion presentations.
Very energetic.
This year we'll also be hosting a One World Festival Art Show in cooperation with the Tom Thompson Art Gallery. It's called Visible Invisible, and we'll be hosting that during the week of May 20th to the 25th. And we are now inviting artists to participate with us to submit artwork to the festival.
Artist community, take note.
So we invite many of our artists to participate in that program as well.
Where would they find more information?
They can find more information at www.greybruceoneworldfestival.org. And on our posters that will be distributed throughout the community.
Thank you.
So the reason we are here tonight is, of course, to ask for something, isn't everybody? And so we respectfully request that City Council support the aims and objectives of the One World Festival, allow us to put the tent up in the parking lot on that day and use the property of the parking lot. The tent, of course, comes with permits, and we always ask for that for free. And great other ways to be part of it would be to help us with garbage, parking, and as well to attend and to check it all out. Of course, it isn't possible without other funders that make this happen, and so we're always thankful to Bruce Power, the different teachers federations, Ontario Power Generation, there's the City of Owen Sound, the Tom Thompson Art Gallery, and a couple of the ministries. Oh, the Sun Times, sorry, Denny, it was there too. And we thank our community partners that sit on the committee to plan this. It isn't just one person. And so Community Living, CMHA, the Men's Program, CNIB, and the Elementary Teachers Federation. The biggest thank you, of course, is to those that come. So not only the kids that come and learn, but the people that come and share their history. And going forward, this is the part we do on camera, hello, where we just ask for always more volunteers to join the committee. We're just a few people. We're always looking for more musicians and drama and actors to come and show their stuff at the One World Festival. And of course, the diverse groups. We know there's more communities we're not tapping into in our area. Funding support, community support, and outreach to a more diverse range of people to come to the event, not just the school kids. So how do we create that positive, respectful community where every person feels and is valued with their differences? We need to be more comfortable.
We're hanging on your very...
with the uncomfortable and less comfortable, with the too comfortable. And there's a nice quote at the bottom.
What is it?
I'm not different from you.
I'm not different from you. I'm different like you.
See, look at that.
Boy.
That is community involvement.
I know.
Woo! That was lovely.
Good thing I didn't have to read it.
As quoted by John Dorland.
Yes, and we would invite many of our council members and our public to help participate and to join us in the celebration of our diversity with our One World Festival on May 23rd. And to get more information, please go to www.greyoneworldfestival.org.
Nice.
Super. Thank you.
I'm not sure if there may be
Jackie,
questions at this
oh,
time.
I thank you so much. It looks like we have a few questions, but I have to ask Jackie if you watched the Oscars last night.
No, I'm a 9 o'clock to bed kind of person.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, there was a guy and he was singing a song called Happy, and it made me think of you. So it's a great, you must be the happiest person in Owen Sound.
I
think it's great.
I try.
Great.
Yes.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship, and I would echo those. Thanks for the enthusiastic presentation. I would just move, we've had this request for a number of years. Perhaps we could say we support the event in principle and ask for a staff report to come back at the next meeting with the details that they've requested in their letter.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion. Councillor Lemon.
I'm just wondering if the timing is still going to be supportive of the group. I was intending to make a similar motion. I would ask the city manager, can we have that report at the next meeting so they have adequate time? I think this has very strong support from council.
We can have a report back for the next council meeting, council.
Our fault. We were scheduled for the February 10th meeting and Mother Nature.
Oh, we had snow then? We may have it at the next one too.
We might have, yeah.
But anyway, I think we should get Willie, but we won't go into that. No, I would certainly support this, and we're going to give a report in 2 weeks, and that, I hope, gives you your organization time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Further questions, discussion, comments? Thank you very much for your presentation this evening, and I'll call the question. Councillor McManaman's motion, all in favor, all opposed. That motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, in another group, we have the West Hill Secondary School, the Meetawee Club, and this is about building another school in Ghana. Welcome.
Hi everyone, my name's Olivia Litt. I'm Emily Crampine and I'm Lisa DeBoer, and we are the leaders of a club called Meetawee at our school, which is West Hill Secondary School here in Owen Sound. And we're here tonight just to reach out to the community and hopefully gain some support with our project. Okay, so as you know, we're the Meetawee Club. So we're a student-run club, meaning that we don't have we have teacher support, but we don't actually have a teacher that sits in on our meetings and tells us what to do and helps us with planning, helps us with fundraising. It's all students. And there's only about 10 of us in the group. And there's about us 3, maybe 2 other grade 12s, and the rest are grade 9s. So they're relatively new to the group, the grade 9s, and aren't used to not having the teacher support. So it makes things a little difficult. But yeah, we are pushing through.
It's like new counselors.
So Meetawee is a program run through Free the Children. Free the Children is founded by Craig and Mark Kielberger. It's an international charity and an educational partner. So meaning their charity, they strive to get donations to end poverty, but equally they have an equal goal in spreading the word around the world to educate people on making a change in the world. A few things that Free the Children believes strongly in is that the fact that children should be free to reach their full potential as agents of change. They believe in engaging, educating, and empowering youth to becoming active local and global citizens. A slogan that's pretty popular with Free the Children is children helping children to change the world. A few programs that are through Free the Children are We Day, We Act, Meetawee, and Adopt a Village. And sometimes with these kind of organizations, it's hard to know if the money that you're donating is going to the cause that you're trying to support. But Free the Children is different in this way, that only 10% of your donations go towards their employees and their administrative rate, and 90% actually goes to the cause that you are supporting. So we have a little video just kind of that was made by Free the Children, so it's their video. And it's just kind of explaining the project further on their end, what they're doing and who's going to be involved and whatnot.
57 million children around the world dream of going to school.
मैं स्कूल में इसलिए आती हूँ कि टीचर बनना चाहती हूँ.
I have a dream to be a doctor.
Ni policía ganada. Ninataka kuwa mpasuaji.
We can help provide access to education. One coin, one brick, one school at a time.
I have a dream to be a professional musician.
Ninapenda kuwa rubani.
मैं स्कूल में पढ़ के नर्स बनना चाहती हूँ और लोगों की सेवा करना चाहती हूँ. Yo queremos química ingeniero.
Help make dreams come true. Collect and roll coins. $20 provides one brick. 500 bricks build a school. Go to freethechildren.com/wecreatechange to find out more.
Okay, so this year in Free the Children, it's the year of education. Did you know that 57 million children around the world today do not have access to education? So Free the Children has set a goal this year to build 200 schools in developing countries all around the world. They have brought together celebrity builders who will be on site at these locations to build the schools themselves. Education is the foundation for sustainability. And just kind of to illustrate that, here's a couple pictures. just showing that yes, there are actual celebrities going to build these schools all over the world. Okay, so the town that we are tackling, or the village that we are tackling, we're just one of those 200 schools. It's in Asemco, Ghana, and the community, you can see the population of 900 people, and most of the community earn their living with not very high-paying jobs through fishing and farming. And you can see the literacy rate is not great compared to how lucky we are in a place like Canada. The national primary school enrollment is only 54%, and 12,000 children die every year from underweight-related malnutrition, Ghana, you know, all the Africa problems. So pretty much what we're trying to do is we're trying to get Africa out of that, and we're hoping that if we can raise the literacy rate, that it will give people better jobs, which will help develop the community more, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help that. So this is a picture of the very first school that was built in Asemco, which is the city where the school that we're trying to raise money for will be built. Kind of shows you, gives you a little bit of an idea of the process it goes through to build the school and a little bit of an idea of what it looks like.
And here's just a little piece that someone that was working on this school wrote about it. It says, "It's been beautiful and inspiring to see the community members take ownership of these schools, pitch in to help build them and work to ensure their children can attend. The excitement is palpable and the mood is best exemplified by some of the soon-to-be students who ran and skipped around their new classroom shouting, 'This school is for me, this school is for me.'" So our goal as a group is to raise $10,000, which builds a school. Every $20 donation gives a brick to support this school, and 500 bricks builds a school.
So this is the poster for the campaign. This is the Free the Children poster. These are just a few pictures that represent the impact that building the school makes on the children. You can see they all look pretty happy. It's kind of an inspiration for us as to keep moving forward, to keep fundraising, to raise our $10,000 so we can build our school, as we want to make that same impact on the students of the children in Asemco.
And something kind of cool about us is that all three of us are going to university next year to become teachers. So it's kind of a special thing for us, and we also have a goal to be able to go and teach overseas someday. So it'd be really cool to be able to go and teach even in this school. So just to give you an idea of some of the fundraising that we've done so far, our year started off with Halloween for Hunger, which was us going out on Halloween collecting food donations and giving them to the local food bank. We've also done candy cane grams around Christmas time. We attended a Christmas party to collect donations, and we've had a bake sale as well. And so far we've raised about $1,000 this school. So that's about 50 bricks for our school.
So in the coming semester, we have a few fundraisers planned. On March 31st, we have Free the Children speaker coming in to do an assembly for our entire school. And then the next day, we're planning to start our We Create Change fundraiser. So it's when we will be handing out these cardboard school boxes, which are also coin jars, to all the classrooms for a coin drive. And our goal is to raise as much money as we can towards our school. And then later on in April, we're running a fundraiser much like the 30-hour famine. Okay, so pretty much what we're asking council is for community involvement. So, I mean, obviously $10,000 is a lot to ask high school students to raise, like ask your parents, but they can only give so much. So we're hoping that the community will get involved much like they do. We have tons of support in this community, which is why we thought this would be a perfect opportunity. So pretty much we're going to ask for suggestions on how we can get the community involved, any fundraisers you think that we can plan.
And we're also going to ask downtown merchants if they would put one of these schoolhouses in their downtown stores. I mean, any donation helps, so yeah, that's pretty much what we're asking. And if anybody needs to contact us, if they have any fundraising ideas or an event that you thought we could attend, this is an email, or you can always call West Hill and ask for any one of us.
So together we can change the world. One coin, one brick, one school, one child at a time. Join our movement today. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight and all the great work that you're doing with this organization. It's one of my personal favorite fundraising events and charitable organizations. They're a very principled group, and you're doing some great things here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Comments from council? Thanks for all your work. Oh, the city manager has something to say here.
Well, I do. I really want to commend these girls. And I can tell you it brought back extraordinarily fond memories for me, because in 2011 I was in Africa building a school in Mozambique. So with that in mind, we will take boxes for City Hall.
There we go.
Thank you.
And I know a store downtown that will too. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, we have one more deputation this evening, and I'll invite Diane Folds and Dave Alexander of the Owen Sound Museum, the Billy Bishop Museum, with regards to the an upcoming event that will, I think, cast our eyes to the sky, perhaps.
Is that it?
I think that's it. It's the pretty blue one.
Is that right? Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Your Worship, councilors, and everyone that's attending the meeting, and of course to the viewers tonight too. We have, and Diane Folds is with me tonight, and I should mention, in a way, I have another alternative hat on. I also am representing the OSCBI because they're involved in this venture too. This is quite a story. I know that Councillor Wright spoke to me on Remembrance Day, and she talked about the power of students doing individual research and finding out about stories. And actually, we got abbreviated in our discussion. I know that you had to go somewhere else, and I had to actually give a speech. So, what happened? This is based on two students that did some student research on. Well, the story will be revealed as we talk about it. Tragically, on the night of April 4th and 5th. RF 150 QBW for W for whiskey took off from Skipton-on-Swale aerodrome, I guess I should say, and made its way to Leuna, Germany on a bombing mission. We do believe that it made it to its target, and then on its way back, unfortunately, either through a night fighter or through some type of ACAC, anti-aircraft fire, the bomber was disabled, and a couple of its engines were on fire. So the bomber tried to make it did make it back to England, and it was flying, I guess it would be flying sort of southwest of London proper. And as it was making its way, it was just desperate to find an airport. And it happened upon a place called Lane End. And so what the pilot of the aircraft did, he started a circuit. He saw, this is speculation, some of it, but he saw a local aerodrome. And we believe, and the local people believe, that he was trying to land this aircraft. And so on the third circuit, unfortunately, the aircraft, I guess it was so damaged that it just finally crashed. So why this story? Why this connection? It happened that the pilot officer, Joseph Watson, was from this area, Owen Sound. I think he was born out in Terre, but he was living in Owen Sound at the time, also a former student of the OSCBI. and then the bomb aimer on board, bomb aimer Kerwood Armstrong. He was also a younger student from the OSCBI. So we don't know, again, how this all happened, but these two guys decided to crew up, and then they had this local connection. And our students looked into this story. I'm telling an abbreviated version of it, but what happened, this story was published. We made our way over to Lane End back in 2012. I know that Mayor Haswell, I know that Mayor Haswell wrote a letter to the Lane Enders at the time. The chairman, they still use chairman over there, Chairman Graham Coulter. And again, we were received very well in the community. We went right to the spot, to the location where the bomber crashed, and then we made our way to Brookwood Military Cemetery to pay homage to these two gentlemen and the whole crew. It was a 7-man crew. And so this story, I guess there's reverberations from it. And so what's happened, and I was going to let Diane take over this part and tell what's the update to the story.
Okay. So OSCBI students paid their respects in April. Was it April of 2012 that you went over there? So 67 years after the tragic crash. So they went over to the grave site in Brookwood Military Cemetery in London, UK. So the event details are a commemorative ceremony will take place at the Cenotaph from 10:30 a.m., or we hope to have that there at 10:30 till 12. And we'd like to request that the Veterans Way be closed for the duration of that commemoration on April the 4th. The present-day version of the 424 Squadron will perform a memorial flypast over the city of Owen Sound at 11 a.m. So that will be the Hercules C-130, will fly over Owen Sound Cenotaph at 11 a.m. and continue on a circuit over OSCBI, where the students will be formed up there. And that's the Hercules C-130, which will be flying in. And the students will be gathering on the school's athletic field in a 424 configuration in tribute of the Squadron, of the RF 150. We're hoping that one of these two aircraft will accompany the C-130. So the one that might accompany would be the Harvard trainer from the Warplane Heritage Museum near Hamilton, or the PBY-5A Kanzo would be also. So that would happen at 11 a.m. So we'd like to just show our appreciation of the Canadian Forces Base Trenton for cooperating with us and giving us, recognizing this, and the two local airmen, Branch 6 of the Royal Canadian Legion at Owen Sound, Grand Snoqualmie Foresters, Bishop House will be providing some media and volunteers to help with the event as well.
So, again, we want to inform council, and we want to inform the citizens of Owen Sound, because perhaps, I think back, and I know a couple people back here in the audience will remember when the snowbirds last came to Owen Sound, and we think that this is kind of the same type of moment. And it is a nice memorial that they picked up on this story, and that's 424 Squadron, present Squadron 8 Wing from Trenton, Ontario. And so they want to pay tribute, and we're so pleased that they want to do it. And anyways, we're looking forward to the event.
Thank you so much. I think this is a really exciting event that you've got planned. And, it's just so encouraging tonight. This is, again, something that's been researched by students. And it's just sort of following on a theme of young people really getting involved in their community and being really interested in history and embracing it and understanding it and providing these opportunities for the community at large. I think it's really wonderful. So I thank you for this. Now, there are a few requests in here. I don't know if there's a member of council who would like to address this through a motion at this time. I'll look for Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just if I could, to Mr. Alexander, what was the date again?
It's April 4th.
Friday, April 4th.
Yeah, so they're looking about, they're hoping, the way it's sounding, I think they might use the elevators as a kind of a ground recognition factor, and then they're going to try to fly right up the river And so their timing, they want to be right over top, because concurrently, these two things will be going on. They want to be right over top the Cenotaph at 11, because we will have a ceremony going on down there. And then, of course, then they're going to arc up towards the school where the students will be outside there.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think we have time for a staff report then.
Not really.
You specifically were asking to close the Veterans Way for those specific hours?
Yes.
And that was your full request? I just want to make sure we don't miss anything.
There was a previous request that has been made through the mayor. I don't know if I should mention that, just that the aircraft can fly at 500 feet.
Can the mayor, I don't know if the mayor can say that.
The mayor can say that.
Oh, good. Well, then, Your Worship, I would move that we accommodate their request.
Sure.
As has been stated here.
Very good. Thank you. Further discussion to this motion? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. This is very exciting, by the way. It must have been a great trip for the students to go over there to do the research. That would have been great. What are you planning at the ceremony? What is that going to consist of?
Okay, now, Branch 6, they deserve a lot of credit here, and I've been slow to mention that tonight. They're going to take charge of most of the ceremony down at the Cenotaph, but it'll be a traditional reflection, commemoration ceremony. We're hoping to have the two students who were involved in the research come to that ceremony, and then they might read part of their story. And then perhaps, we're not sure if the crew can land yet, if they can. We want to invite them to our school because we do have a memorial there for our F-150. And I know that the Legion is also talking about having a brief reception afterwards.
So is there any type of parade or anything like that?
No parade that I'm aware of, no.
That's fine. Okay, well, that's great. Good luck.
And I must say congratulations as well to all the folks at the Legion, Royal Canadian Legion, and the Grain Simcoe Foresters as well. The work that so many volunteers in this community do around all kinds of events, particularly with our history and our heritage, it's remarkable. Councillor Lemon.
Just a comment. We had two things that may sound unrelated. The One World Festival. And part of what happened as a result of World War II were some of the Polish pilots who were part of either the RAF or RCAF. They did some of the training in Canada, and some of them came to live here, which provided some of our cultural diversity within this community. I think this is absolutely excellent. And I think it's the kind of thing that we should remember the valor of the men and women who defended our country in its time of great crisis during World War II, and I think this is an excellent way of doing it. Congratulations.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We'll look up, and we'll only look up 500 feet.
That's right. That's awesome.
Thank you. We do have a number of pieces of correspondence. Council's direction, please. Oh, dear, I'm sorry. Yes. We'll just give a few people a moment to depart. Sure. Okay, we have public question period. Are there any members of the public here this evening that would like to ask a particular question of this council? Okay, seeing none. We do have correspondence. Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, we have a number of people here from the CWC group, and their matter is coming forward, and I would request that that be brought forward as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Shall we get through the correspondence, and then,
All right.
unless anyone on council objects, we'll bring that forward right away. So to the correspondence, council direction, essentially some letters on various matters. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Motion to receive the correspondence.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion to receive. Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're at
If I may, Your Worship, just to note that I did not vote on 11A.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That is noted. We're now at reports of committees and city staff. Councillor Lemon has requested that, which item in particular, Councillor Lemon, on your agenda?
Those matters pertaining to CWC that are on our agenda, the draft lease agreement 12B4.
12B4. Okay, page 96 for council members and staff. Okay, Councillor Lemon, you'd like to speak to this?
Yes, Your Worship, I would. I believe that it is now time to support the CWC in their endeavors. And we have people here who can answer any questions. And I would move the staff report and we go ahead with a lease agreement as described in that report as soon as possible.
Okay, we do have a recommendation on the screen in front of you, and it's fairly straightforward. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Could I ask if Mr. Furness could just go over the highlights of the report?
Absolutely.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. At the last council meeting, direction was given to meet with a representative from CWHC and work out what would be the details. We've brought this back. We've done that quickly, and we're still waiting for comments from the city solicitor. I believe the CWHC would still like to review in maybe more detail. We followed the principles and the direction that was given in the last council meeting, a short-term lease. Financial statements were provided. We did look at those, although we're not giving any qualitative analysis in terms of assumptions, but we did see them. The zoning from the planning department has agreed with the use. Both organizations, in terms of the tourism and the museum, will be kept separate in terms of it's an informal shared arrangement. The split in terms of what use in the building is in the draft lease. There is a requirement to have an agreement to have the artifacts transferred, and that's pretty critical. And this doesn't deal with the budget grant that is in the city line budget item in terms of the grant to the Owen Sound Museum. So that's a separate item. So having said that, what this is a draft lease that once we have comments back from the city solicitor and any further comments from CWHC, we would then go forward with signing it. The lease agreement was taken from the existing lease and also some clauses from the other lease agreement we have with the Billy Bishop, and looked at those and combined them. So I still need to have any further comments from the solicitor, as I mentioned. So.
Further questions? Councillor McManaman, I'll go back to you.
Thank you, Worship. Two questions for Mr. Furness, and I can only think of one of them. Oh, no, sorry, you had said about the financials. Your report says there's no implication or decision or request about grants.
So there's no impact of this lease on the city in terms of a budgetary impact. The financial statements that we saw were not really, they weren't requested in the RFP, but we asked to make sure that there was a plan in place. And I think as much as there's assumptions listed in the financial proposal that was given, we saw those, so they have a plan. But in terms of the budget, city budget, there's no increase or decrease required into the city budget. In other words, the utilities and all the costs are already accounted for in the existing budget.
Thank you, and I would just congratulate this group and, well, both groups, the museums as well, for coming together to work this through. I'm sure it's been a difficult process along the way, but congratulate you for getting here. So those are my comments.
Councillor Body.
Yeah, Mr. Furness, I guess it's the lawyer in me. I understand now that you've taken the precedent from two different precedents. In places, you're referring to the licensee, and other places, it's the tenant. That kind of needs to be tightened up, so it's clear which one each of them is. But otherwise, congratulations to everybody. This is good. And it's good to get it moving forward quickly.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Lemon.
Well, to finish off the very brief discussion about a very important project, one of the reasons I said to expedite was, it's hard to believe it outside, but spring is going to come. And then after that comes summer, and we want to get the things happening at the museum as quickly as possible so that they don't lose the summer. And I think that's very, very critical. Plus, of course, they've got the Chichimon cruise coming up and some other good things in the works. And so we need to help them move ahead with this so we do have the downtown museum on the waterfront available for the summer.
Thank you, and thank you to all involved. Thank you to staff very much for navigating the waters on this, and for all of the volunteers. I didn't really mean to make a pun, actually, but it came out as a pun. And to bring this to fruition, I had the, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Purdon. No, go, Councillor Purdon.
I just wanted to add my voice of congratulations to the two groups, and I'm so happy to see this moving forward with this lease agreement, and I'm clearly in support of the motion.
And thank you for those comments. I recently had an opportunity to tour the Algo Steel, which is on the East Harbor wall, and is it the Algo Steel or the Algo Marine? Thank you, Algo Marine. And some officials from Georgian College and I had a really detailed tour, and I have some photographs which I took of the train station, which I would like to give to you. I'm not a photographer, but I think they're pretty neat. So I'll share them with you later. So thank you. This is also something I noticed that is on our desks, and it looks like, I would imagine, the first of what is yet to be some more. So thank you. Congratulations to everyone involved. It's been a lot of work to get to this point, and I guess really now the work really starts in many ways. So all the best to everyone. Thank you. To the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Twaddle. Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would ask that item 6B from the Operations Advisory Committee minutes, that's page 196, the issue of the plebiscite on fluoride come forward. I think there are a couple of people in the audience who are interested in that as well.
Absolutely. Any objections to that, Council? No. If we could pull that particular item forward on the screen. Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Here it is. Okay, hold it. Okay. Yep, right.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Well, if you can see it on your screen, let's go with that. It's loading and it's awfully slow. Get that broadband initiative going. Let's. Councillor Twaddle, would you like to open the dialogue on this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. We had a public meeting in January on the issue of fluoridation of the city water as a result of a number of questions or concerns that had been raised. Following that, on February the 19th, the Operation Advisory Committee considered a report from the city clerk and also the comments that were made at the meeting. Just a bit of background that I think most people are by now familiar with. Because we have had previous plebiscites on fluoridation of the city water, the decision to remove fluoride can only be made by a plebiscite. So the recommendation that came forward from the committee was that council provide notice that it would pass a bylaw in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act to put the question of whether to continue fluoridation of the city water supply on the ballot in the October municipal election. And I'm just going to ask the clerk to clarify, because in the recommendation, we need to provide notice that we're going to pass the bylaw, and then schedule another public meeting. And is that a requirement that there be another public meeting? Okay, I had a question about that afterwards. We had a very complete public meeting.
Sure. I'll defer to the clerk to get a more fulsome response.
The initial public meeting that was held was focused on the issue of fluoridation and the benefits and potential detriments related to it. This public meeting would specifically be focused on whether or not council should add a question to the ballot. So it's a meeting for you to get public input on whether or not you should pass the bylaw, which would put the question on the ballot. It's not about the subject matter itself.
Thank you.
So I would move that council support the recommendation of the Operations Advisory Committee as contained in the minutes on page 196 and 197.
Okay. Thank you. To the motion, Councillor Adair.
I certainly support the motion, and I support the idea of putting this question on the ballot. It's the question that I have questions about, or I may not continue to have questions about not having questions about it, which is basically what the question says. It is absolutely the worst use of the English language in something that's supposed to be very clear and understandable that the provincial government could possibly be forcing us to put on the ballot. Now, I know it's not used that often, but I think a subsequent motion, it won't affect us, but that question that the province makes us put on the ballot, that needs to change. For some other municipality that's faced with a similar issue, the whole point of going out to the electorate to ask a specific question is so that everyone understands what the question is. This question is not understandable. You really have to step back and go, if I'm in favor, then I say no. If I'm against, I say yes. It doesn't make any sense. Having said that, I'm in favor of it. It's the only question that we're allowed to ask. But I think a subsequent motion informing someone in the provincial government that clarity in language is a goal for questions that go on a ballot.
Did you want to repeat that? No.
I may or may not wish to repeat it.
Okay. We do have a motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We will... Very well. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. Although, as I said, it may not affect us again. It may affect us again at some point in the future. I think we really do need to write a letter to the ministry in charge of this, and it's the Fluoridation Act. I'm not sure what ministry that falls under. Is it the Ministry of Health? and ask them to put a clear question in the act. It's so unclear. It's not a helpful question to ask in many respects.
Do you have any suggested wording that might?
No.
Okay.
Not a double negative.
There you go. A letter will be written if this motion passes. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Back to the agenda. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. In keeping with the spirit of the evening, I would ask, we have representatives in the audience from the Caldwell Aquatics, and I'm wondering if we could move item from the Parks and Rec minutes, the summer programs from the Parks and Rec minutes,
Sure.
7B, if that could be moved forward for discussion at this point.
Is it 12?
I have 7, but...
12C5 on the master agenda.
Oh, sorry,
And
yes.
Then,
And then 7B on the...
sure, within the minutes.
Within the minutes, yes.
Sure,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, unless there's any objections, I don't see any problem with that. Yeah, well, that's my job.
So if your worship,
Go ahead.
if I might speak to it, the first two parts or the first part of the motion is a fairly routine matter. Committee passed having a partnership for a soccer camp and for a hockey skills and power skating camp, so that's a fairly straightforward request. The second one speaks to the operation of the pool at Harrison Park and whether or not swimming lessons would be provided. When the committee had this discussion, as you can see in the minutes, it was a fairly lengthy debate, a fairly heated debate back and forth, many different opinions on the matter. We did receive 2 proposals, one of which spoke specifically from for swimming lessons. The other one did not speak to the matter. The committee was interested to know the Caldwell Aquatics did present a proposal. It was more money, and it did include swimming lessons. The Y proposal was less money, but did not include swimming lessons. It didn't specifically address that matter at all. The committee discussed it at great length, and one of the comments that came back was, well, what would it look like if the Y did do swimming lessons? And so with that introduction, staff were asked to take a look at that. I believe they did, and perhaps I'd ask Ms. Coulter if she could speak to that matter at this point.
Okay. Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Worship. There is an analysis in the report that accompanied the minutes that evaluated the 2 proposals, and as Councillor mentioned, there was certainly significant debate at the committee. Following the committee meeting, I did have some discussions with the Y, and they can do swimming lessons if the city wishes. The cost of offering those lessons should be covered by the revenue from those lessons. So the Y proposal would still cost approximately the same amount of money. I guess I would caution council, given the number of registrations and what we've seen in terms of the trend of registration, that perhaps if council wishes to offer swimming lessons at the Harrison Park pool, and I should emphasize for the public that the pool would be open. The open swim times, the free swim times, the paid swim times would happen in either proposal. But I would suggest that perhaps we develop a swimming lesson program that's based on number of registrants rather than perhaps offering our normal summer swimming program, that we would maybe condense that a little bit based on the registration numbers that we see to minimize any cost to the city of offering those lessons.
Councillor McManaman and then
Thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Worship. So just to finish up this thought, the motion that you see before you did not have that additional information, and as chair of the committee, I don't think it would be right to move forward with this recommendation with that new information. I feel quite strongly the committee would not have voted this way if they had that additional information. I think with that information, they would have voted to keep swimming lessons at Harrison Park. There were a number of different reasons why. One was cost. One was a duplication of service, but as Ms. Coulter has commented, if we move forward with a somewhat modified program looking at registrations and not a full 8-week program as has happened sometimes in the past, I firmly believe that this recommendation would have been different from the committee with that information. Certainly the other members of the committee were there as well, and therefore, I'd encourage them to comment on that. But with that in mind, I would move that we perhaps just receive this recommendation, and then I would have a follow-up recommendation afterwards. So the specific recommendation about swimming lessons, I would just move that we, if that's proper procedure, we just receive that particular recommendation, not approve it.
Mr. Clerk?
Or note and file that would.
You can receive, you can note and file, you can defer until a later date if you know that there's more information coming back. All of those
Then I just move to, we could send it back to the committee, as Councilor Wright has just said that, and that was a thought. The problem is a timing issue. It may not, to get it out in, to advertise it properly in the summer programs, there may be a timing issue. And the other reason saying I wouldn't necessarily say it needs to go back to committee is I'm, and I'd ask the other members maybe to speak. I'm fairly certain that that was the committee's wish with this new information. But perhaps if I could ask the other members to speak on that point.
Councillor Lemon and Councillor.
Well, very simply, when I looked over the agenda and saw that we were going to cancel and not have swimming lessons at Harrison Park, which have been going on since long before I was born, I'm quite sure. I don't think we can accept anything that doesn't include swimming lessons in the outdoors. This is a community that is on Georgian Bay. We have 2 rivers and lots of areas of swimming. And I really think swimming lessons are important. And I think having them at Harrison Park, because that's a bit of an attraction to people coming to the campground and other use of the park. So I'm glad that the Y is going to operate swimming lessons. I think that would be a real change in policy to get swimming lessons out of Harrison Park, where they have been for so long, and been over the years they've had an awful lot of kids have gone through the swim program at Harrison Park.
Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Lemon's comments. I would concur with Councillor McManaman. It was my motion that the committee supported, but on a split. The issue is one of declining enrollment for swimming lessons at Harrison Park. And I think, if I understand the comments from the Director of Community Services, that the scope of the lessons to be offered this summer would be based upon the interest at registration. There was a lot of concern at the committee about the points that Councillor Lemon raises, and I certainly understand them. But given the cost that was before the committee, given the concern about duplication of service, and most significantly, given the concern around declining enrollment in swimming lessons, has, resulted in the decision that was made. I think it's important that we all understand that swimming lessons going forward would depend on registration. And I just received a newsletter from the Y today, and they're changing the model for the swimming lessons that they're offering at the facility at the rec center as well, because of the interest around enrollment and the kind of programs that parents want. So I certainly support the motion and recognize that the deadline to get the advertising into the summer program guide requires that decision be made tonight so that we can move forward.
Councillor Dare.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly agree with Councillor McManaman that given the information that we've acquired over the last few days, that the outcome of this decision, in fact, the nature of what's before us would have changed. So I appreciate that. I just think it needs to be noted that if we do move forward with lessons this summer, it's based on anybody signing up for them. There were huge chunks of lessons that were canceled last year because nobody signed up for them. I think people are making a decision not to have swimming lessons at Harrison Park by not signing people up. There are so many other things that parents are putting their kids in, and I just quickly made a list of hockey camp, soccer camp, theater camp, circus camp, outdoor adventure clubs, science camp, art camps. When I took swimming lessons at Harrison Park many years ago, there were none of those options available. The parents who can afford to put their kids into camps and swimming have this wide variety of things that they're choosing, and they seem not to be choosing swimming lessons. So we may be just doing a rear guard action here by keeping them up. I think it's great that kids learn how to swim outside. I didn't have the kind of Norman Rockwell-ish experiences that people have expressed to me in the last little while about swimming lessons at Harrison Park. I remember shivering on the deck, hoping not to have to go back into the freezing cold water and dreading the lesson being over when I had to go into the dank change room and dry off with a damp towel and hope that my socks didn't get wet. But that was my experience at Harrison Park Pool, and I'm sure others had much more idyllic experiences. So I think we should by all means make available lessons this summer, but if people don't sign up for them, they're not going to happen. As simple as that.
Councillor Purden.
I just had a question about the proposals that came in. There's a difference in the cost between the two. The one includes swimming lessons and the other one doesn't. Am I understanding that correctly? But the part that confuses me is that the higher one said they would retain all revenue from lessons. So was that part of the cost? I just don't understand the figures here, I must say.
Through you, Your Worship, the Caldwell proposal was for a flat fee, I think around $16,000. And then the Y proposal, and then they would collect all revenue and pay the cost related to lessons. The Y proposal didn't include lessons and was for a flat fee of around $12,000. Subsequent to the committee's discussion, we asked the Y, as was requested through the committee, about whether or not they would do lessons. What we understand from the Y is, and similar to the Caldwell proposal, the cost of providing those lessons, provided people register, should be offset by the registrations that are paid. So the city will retain those revenues and will pay the Y for any staff time that would be spent.
Thanks very much. I thought that's what it was, but I found it a bit difficult to follow. It's probably me. I honestly think that the city could do more to promote swimming lessons, whether they're at the Harrison Park. I certainly think we should be having that option for families at Harrison Park. I think that's critical. There's many people who don't go to the Y, and it's a great spot for it. But I do agree with Councillor Lemon. Living in a community where there's a lot of water, I think as a municipality, we need to be really supporting swimming lessons for all children, regardless of income. Every child should have an opportunity to swim, and I think having them available at Harrison Park is just another opportunity for children. And if the registrations are going down, part of it is perhaps some of the things that have been noted about if there's fewer kids. But that doesn't mean that the city doesn't try and get the message out to encourage kids to swim, to encourage parents to get their kids swimming at the municipal and at the Y services. I think there is a message that we could be putting out there.
Councillor Lemon, Councillor Boddy.
Well, the safety aspect of it for children is really, really important. And our Conservation Authority, the Grey Sauble, for I think about 20 years now has operated a water safety program, recognizing that there are, I don't know how many lakes in Grey and Bruce County, and rivers, Bay, Lake Huron, the harbor. And children are around water almost anywhere you go in this area. And I really think it's important that they learn to swim because it's a safety thing for children, and I think we should be taking an active role. But the other thing is you have to promote it if you want people to go there. And haven't got a handle on exactly how much promotion we did. But I think the key element is safety and quality of life. If you know what to do in the water and you take this type of swimming program, if you ever happen to fall off a dock or a wall in the harbor, you'll know what to do, and we won't have a drowning. And it's really that basic. It's really important that children learn to swim.
No argument on that from anyone. Councillor Boddy?
I'm going to sound like the Echoplex, I guess. Approximately 2 years ago, I remember there was an epidemic in Ontario of children drowning that didn't have swim lessons. It was, by recollection, it was culturally noticed or specified, as well as income levels that seemed to be the big issue. Last year was our first year of a non-rec agreement that caused a lot of confusion in the community, and that may have been a factor a year ago. We may get a rebound. I'm in favor of keeping swim lessons, though I do have romantic reasons. Per little Councillor Adair, when he went, they had heated pools. When I went, they didn't.
That's right.
But it was, if we can offer a second place for kids to be able to take lessons, there are some, I don't know if it's still a factor. When my son was a little bit younger, it was difficult to get into the Y unless you're a member of the Y. The lessons sold out. They're in the new building. I don't know if that's still a factor at all. I assume some of that's been corrected, but if we can offer a second location for kids to learn to swim, promote it, I think it's important. Thanks.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to wrap it up, the report speaks to it, the committee spoke to it, and I think everyone agreed that having swimming lessons in the community, I don't want people to sort of get sidetracked on what the discussion was a critical element all the way along, and at no time are always swimming lessons were being offered in the community. The Y did have capacity with the new facility. They offer more swimming lessons and did have capacity. So just wanted to mention that. The other comment about providing services, as you'll see one of the other motions here, the city's role in recreation has been through our master plan for 5 or 6 years now, that we promote and develop an approach to programming that is, the city's role is more facilitation, to partner with groups to facilitate it, not necessarily us running whatever the recreational program might be, facilitating and partnering with a group that is running it. We don't need to run the hockey camp as long as there's being a hockey camp offered. We don't need to necessarily offer swimming lessons as long as swimming lessons are being offered. So just that's the second point. But if I might, Your Worship, I would move that item 7B2, which is specifically the motion to this discussion, be just received, and then further that we instruct staff to prepare an administrative MOU with the Owen Sound Family Y for the operation of the Harris Park Pool, which includes a modified swimming lesson program, if that wording is appropriate. I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon.
Well, the one question I've got, just to make sure, I'm assuming that at Harrison Park you would not have to be a member of the Y to take the swimming lessons?
That's correct.
I would like that in there.
be part of the public minutes. That's certainly been noted. As well, is there further discussion from council? I'm concerned that we may be missing an opportunity. And what in the discussion tonight, I've heard, a lot of very valid points around the opportunity for kids in our community to learn how to swim and to provide a lot of opportunities. And understanding that it is the city's role to facilitate these programs, perhaps we're missing an opportunity to have a broader discussion, and that broader discussion would be to partner with the other proponent to provide swimming lessons. Clearly, there was no indication that the Y was particularly interested in coming up with a swimming program. I can't think of any organization but a private business that would promote the opportunity to take swimming lessons across the community. They would advertise. They would actively seek out customers, essentially, to participate by taking swimming lessons at the Harrison Park pools. So I'm just concerned that that discussion is being completely maybe not explored fully. That there may be opportunities to explore that more fully, and for that reason, if it comes to a tie vote, I probably won't support just moving forward with the simple MOU with the Y on this, but would like to see more discussion around opportunities for collaboration between the opportunity for private sector to provide swimming lessons at Harrison Park Pool, as well as the Y as the operator. That may not be possible, but I think that it is certainly worth discussion. So having said that, we'll call the question. Councillor McMahon, yes.
I just noticed in
Yeah.
the motion, it talks about that this arrangement will be reviewed after the season. If I could add that to the motion.
Sure. Madam Clerk.
Just for clarity, the modified swimming program is based on registration numbers or community need or something that...
I didn't want to tie the hands of staff as they develop the MOU. I think that's the understanding, though.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Myself, Councillor Purdon, that motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward. Well, before we go too far away from the balance of that agenda, or that minutes, could we deal with that, and it keeps it a little tidy as we move forward? Thank you.
Sure, if that's
Councillor
the wish, I would just move the balance of those minutes.
Of those particular minutes? Thank you. Is there any discussion further to any of the items within that set of minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Just makes it a little tidier moving forward. Can I ask if the clerks have an extra pen? My pens have run dry. Thank you. We are moving to the consent agenda. Thanks very much. Consent agenda item 12A, 1 through 15. Councillor Lemon.
Motion to approve 12A1 to 12A15.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just looking, if you just, the DIA minutes are part of this, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And just a comment to, Councillor Purdon's here. I was just concerned in the minutes, and I'm fine with this year, but in the budget, the parking revenues were taken from reserves, again, not as part of the general budget. And I think the parking system seems to be moving forward, and I just had a concern with that it's not really requires any even comment, that moving forward, if that's going to continue to work, I think needs to be adopted as part of the general budget as opposed to from reserves, because that's going to run out at some point, and then we're going to be left with a parking problem. So that's, as I was reading it, that was just a comment I'd make as part of, you can take that back to the committee if you or the DIA if you would. That's all. Thank you.
Just in response to that, there was a very, very lengthy discussion about how to incorporate the parking fees into the overall budget, and the decision was made for this year once more to do it from reserves, but this will be the last year that will be coming out of reserves.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the city manager on 2013 accomplishments. Ms.
Your
Corson.
worship, I'm wondering, given the hour, if you would want to defer this till the next meeting.
I'm seeing some weary faces say yes. Thank you. We'll look forward to that, and we'll bring popcorn. Thank you. We need a motion to defer, please.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have an item with regards to the Enterprise Center lease extension. This is the Small Business Enterprise Center. Councillor Adair?
Move the recommendation that we extend the lease for the enterprise, the Small Business Enterprise Center.
Discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? That motion's carried. We've dealt with 12B4. Yes, 12B3 we should deal with. Manager of Economic Development and Tourism. This is with results of an RFP for the selection of real estate agent. Mr. Furness.
Thank you, Your Worship. This came to council before, and council had asked for further clarification, which I can understand. So I tried to provide that information on how the ratings were given. Each proposal was scored 10 points. Well, it's described in the report. 40 points basically about the experience in the firm and the team, 30 points for the marketing, and 30 points for the commission rate. And the review team scored each group individually. In addition to those that were listed in the report, Gail McCartney from Royal LePage, Catherine Tilson from Peak, and Sharon Vanderholt, Barry Hamill, and Ray Bumstead also made submissions. Their scores were lower. All the proposals were well done. We did factor in on the first 4 points in terms of the description of the firm, the references and experience, and the number of properties sold factored in or considered in those total scores, the commercial property that they were involved in. Having said that, the amount of commercial property that transpires in the community is not great. And it happens in different forms, both in lease and for sale. That's how we did the review, and as you can see, the points were very close, and the total score came out for the one proponent. I would also add that in showing a lot of our property, I think the challenge for us isn't so much that they're commercial or residential. Even on our residential properties that we've talked about, 19th Street West and the 8th Street Reservoir, which we're continuing to look at, when you think about the Scopey's lot, when you think about the court building, or you think about the CP rail station, it's not the developer that we need to find, it's the end user. It's the unique end user for those buildings, and there's developers that will look at those buildings if they know that there's an end user. So to me, it's not, they're very, very unique properties that are going to have a very unique use. I'm still wondering how we'll ever find a use for the jail, but there may be some creative people out there, so.
Thank you. Councillor Lemon.
Well, one question, you talked about the number of sales. The other part of that is how much of the sales with the firm were commercial sales? Because a lot of the properties we've got are what you would deem commercial or institutional.
That's right. So
I am not sure that, like selling a single-family home and selling the jail are quite a bit different. And I wondered how much rating did you give to the sale of commercial industrial, because I see some other names there that have experience in that area.
That's right. That was factored in, and I think on total, the marketing and the commission rate, they were very close, but when we added it up at the end, that's what it came to.
Councillor Twaddle, then Councillor Purdon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had asked for the additional information. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Furness. And I would move the recommendation that we enter into an agreement with Bill McFarlane and Ernie Coates on a 3-year contract for representing from the sale of surplus city lands.
Councillor Purdon?
No, I was just going to move the recommendation.
Okay. Further discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Lemon, that motion is carried. Thank you. If I could just mention also my comment about popcorn, I want to just re-emphasize that the 2013 accomplishments presentation, it is a presentation that requires the full attention of council, and I think it's an opportunity for members of the public to really see a great number of accomplishments that city staff have achieved over the last year. And when you do see the presentation, I think it will be a solid reminder of an awful lot of work that has really been undertaken by a lot of people. So I don't want to make light of it. It's been an incredibly difficult year and an incredibly challenging year with a huge number of successes that we're going to see at our next council meeting. So we'll get that on right at the beginning of our next council meeting, and everybody will be fresh and paying attention. So thank you. We have a report from the hardworking tourism marketing coordinator who has been patiently waiting, and this is on Chinese media coverage, the Sportsman Show and Winterlicious 2014. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to make it short. Okay. So this is about, as you said, we've had a busy winter in tourism. We always do, but this year's been very, very interesting. We've had 3 big initiatives right now. I'll actually start with Winterlicious because it's on now. This is our second year. Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody hear me now? This is our second year running Winterlicious, and it's going on until March 16th. We have 8 participating restaurants this year, which is more than last year, and we've had draw prizes, and our first draw prize was pulled yesterday, actually, at the George May Symphony concert, and David Adair was helping with that, Councillor Adair. What else is new this year? We have 2 additional restaurants, Norma Jean's and Shorty's Grill. We have an emphasis on chefs sourcing locally grown food and products. And that's a really big leap for a lot of our restaurants. Some of them have already been doing this for years, but the whole 100-mile idea has really grown, and I think customers are interested. And so what we've been doing is, when we started this initiative, and we challenged the chefs, we said, you know, even if it's a couple of things on your menu, please try to create a new menu out of this. And it led to some of our chefs actually attending the Chefs Forum that was last week at the Farmers Market, and getting in touch with producers that they didn't even know existed before in the Grey Bruce area. So that's been a really exciting development that I think will have longer term implications. And we have 3 draws that we're holding with gift baskets. As you see, I brought one of them with me today. And the amount of partners that have contributed to that is just astounding. We have beer from Clan and Beer Brewery. We have wine from all 3 wineries in the area. The Owen Sound Farmers Market, Ginger's Maple Syrup, the Pickle Guy, the list goes on. Almost $200 worth of contributions there. So we're very excited about that. And as I said, the first draw was held Sunday. The next draw will be this coming Sunday on the 10th, and another one on March 15th. So, and the Sportsman Show was held in Toronto in February. We attended that as well. Both Steve Furness and I were there, along with the Sydenham Sportsman Association, Grey County Tourism, Bruce County Tourism, and also the Ontario Camping Association. They've been with us the last 3 years as well. Excellent show. Last year's was a difficult one because we had a snowstorm. This year we had all these snowstorms, but not during the snow sportsman show. So we had over 2,000 visitors to our booth, wide range of questions. They were very interested in Owen Sound. I think there's a growing awareness of the area too at these shows, so that was very successful as well. I'd like to show you, for Winterlicious, now you mentioned the Chinese New Year. We've had Chinese media, a station called Fairchild TV. They're based in Vancouver with offices in Toronto as well, and they also broadcast internationally. They have an audience of about 700,000 Chinese-speaking people. And they expressed interest first in the Chinese New Year celebration that we had here, and then came up in February to do a second show on our Black History, for Black History Month. And I'll show you a few clips from each. A lot of it's in Chinese. A full translation is coming soon. May Ip has been translating. She's given us the gist of what they're about, but also what we're hoping to do is have a line-by-line translation. So we'll have the videos and we'll actually have English subtitles and be able to put them on our website on YouTube for anybody interested in them. So this one. Okay, I'll show you a little bit of the start to get a feel for it. Jamie, do you know it's... There we go. Timeline Magazine is the show that was on. Doesn't appear to be loading very well. Yeah. Okay. I will send you the links that can be in your agendas for tomorrow through the clerk's office. They are very interesting. Just a brief synopsis, the Chinese New Year show, they focused a lot on our partnering with, or pairing with Dai. They found that very exciting and talked about it being really an almost forgotten past Owen Sound's link with China and being very happy that it was resurrected again. So that was a big focus of the Chinese New Year airing. For the Black History, they also discussed, we gave them a guided tour for a day, and there were various people that talked, including members of the Emancipation Festival Committee. Benita Johnson de Mateus was there. The mayor also spoke with them. And they talked about Owen Sound being a welcoming community for the Black people. And it was interesting because they tried not to gloss it over too much. I mean, they asked Blaine some very tough questions. They said this was a free place, but was it free of prejudice? And he had to address some of those questions, and it was very interesting. So we will provide the links for these.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation and all the work you're doing on these initiatives. Attending the shows, it's another great example of the collaboration that the city is engaged in with our partners. And I notice on the Owen Sound Winterlicious, we have a Georgian Bluffs restaurant on there at Cobble Beach. So, and again, it speaks to the collaboration and the willingness to work with all the communities around us and all the businesses around us. So look forward to seeing everybody at some of the local restaurants this weekend. Thank you. Yes, please.
I will move the recommendation that we receive the report.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have an item 12B6. This is a report from the city clerk. This is a use of city resources during elections. Councillor Twaddle.
No, thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the report. I think it should be common sense to anybody who's running as a candidate, those of us who are currently on council, that there needs to be a clear separation of our council duties and any election campaigning, and certainly use of city resources is inappropriate. I have a couple of questions just ask the clerk to clarify. I think I know the answers to them, but I think for the public who may be watching and for public information on these, one, what's the definition of the campaign period? And the other is to elaborate a little bit more on who needs to register, because in this election, we're going to have a plebiscite on the ballot, and that means that people who are campaigning on the issue of whether or not to discontinue fluoridation of the city water, that's the way the question reads, Councillor Adair, to know that they will have some obligations under this, under the legislation, and it's covered in the policy. Thank you.
Ms. Van Alphen.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Twaddle. In answer to the first question, the campaign period begins on the day that someone registers a nomination. So it is a floating period, and it will be different for each person. Every campaign period ends on December 31st. With respect to people who are interested in raising funds in relation to a question on the ballot, they too must register under the Municipal Elections Act and are treated the same way that a candidate is and have all of the obligations with respect to financial reporting that a candidate has. So the policy does speak to this approach with respect to municipal resources being for school board trustees, municipal councillors, if there were municipal councillors that were running in provincial or federal elections, or if it is a person being a corporation or a trade union or an individual that is raising funds with respect to a question on the ballot.
Thank you. Councillor Twaddle.
So just with regards to the plebiscite, if not speaking for myself, but if an individual wants to express an opinion, write a letter to the editor, that's one thing. If they're going to purchase advertising, pay to produce leaflets and brochures and hand them out, that's a different issue. So I can have an opinion and I can express it freely in the as in it doesn't cost money sense of the word. But if I'm going to do anything that involves an expenditure, I need to register and then file a campaign finance report.
Ms. Van Alphen.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, that is exactly correct, and the manager of elections and myself have already met with one person who has been exploring the options around the referendum, and we have made that very clear to them, and we'll do so with anybody else who may want to or who appears to be getting involved in raising funds with respect to a question on the ballot.
Interesting. Councillor McManaman.
Just on that point, the question of fluoridation, I'm assuming the health unit will come out with all sorts of information. How are they governed by this? They're not raising money, they're spending money.
Mm-hmm. So I will take a look specifically at the Municipal Elections Act about whether it's the raising or the expenditure of funds, and I will be speaking with them if they choose to start a campaign in favor of their position about what they need to do under the Elections Act.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But either way, on this point, that's not discretionary from council's point of view. Anything you've just described with Councillor Twaddle, that's under the Election Act. We don't have any say one way or the other on it.
That's correct.
Right.
Thank you.
How does this apply to social media?
This is
Does it apply?
policy that speaks to the use of city resources. So if it is social media that it is provided by the city, or, and the Municipal Act makes this clear, if it was social media provided by the county or another level of government, it would be considered a contribution if it was used for campaign purposes without there being a commensurate expense.
Okay.
I would like to point out some thanks to a couple of councillors who looked very closely at this policy over the weekend and provided some feedback and noted an inadvertent loophole, which is around the use of the city-funded wireless systems that are in councillors' homes, that in fact one requires internet to use those resources, and the way the policy reads right now, internet would be in the prohibited section and the modems would be in the feed section, so that doesn't make sense. So if I may, I have drafted a suggested revised recommendation which speaks to the ability for members of council to put in a prorated fee for their city-funded internet connections and related devices so that you're not ending up in that technical loophole.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Councillor McMahon.
And so just further to that, the detail around that proportionate fee, prorated fee, how would that work?
My suggestion with respect to that formula would be the amount that you are paid by the city prorated for the number of days in the year against the number of days in your campaign period. And then you, as a candidate, would determine the proportion of use that is for your campaign. And that would be up to you to decide. We would help determine the numbers. The fee would be paid and would be an expense on your financial statements.
Second question, campaign-related messages shall not be recorded using city voicemail or email. So both of those things are outside of any candidate, any councillor's control. Somebody calls and leaves a voicemail for the mayor, for instance. The mayor has a voicemail at City Hall. That's outside of her control, for instance. So how would that, and email's the same thing. We receive emails. We could receive emails, sorry, at our city email address.
So this is guidance also for municipal staff. They are not to engage in campaign-related activities using the city resources. So they are not able to record voicemails or deal with emails from their own email addresses. If you receive a voicemail or an email at a city account, you should forward that to your personal account on your personal laptop or your personal phone and deal with it accordingly. So when something has been received by you, you deal with it by moving it from the municipal resource world into your personal campaign world. And for city staff, they are aware that they are not to engage in that in any fashion with respect to the city resources.
And then, and the only last question, the city provides Wi-Fi in this building, for instance. That's open to the entire public. So if I'm using a personal device in this building to answer campaign-related inquiry using city Wi-Fi, you see where I'm, I know that's, but that was just one, we have city Wi-Fi at the library here, all over the place. How would that work?
Well, I've tried to keep the policy specific to city-funded internet in your homes so that you are dealing with it specifically with the funded materials that are given to you in your homes for the use council. When you are out, and I would suggest that this would be similar to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which says if you have an ability to engage in the use of Wi-Fi in common with the rest of the ratepayers, then the whole intent of this legislation is that no one has a greater chance of accessing resources during the campaign period. So if you look at the purpose of the legislation, I would suggest that using Wi-Fi that is available to anyone would not be a violation of the rules.
Great, thank you for your answers.
Councillor Purdon and Councillor Mann.
I was just going to move the motion, not to stop discussion, but
that doesn't.
Move the recommendation that we direct staff to bring a bylaw forward that's adopting the policy on the use of city resources during elections.
Is that including the changes that the clerks? Okay, thank you. So we do have a motion. Councillor Lemon.
Well, I hate to give people a reality check, but the use of city resources, quote, computers and everything else, that is a very subjective thing, because there's no right answer and there's no wrong answer. It's an estimate. I think we're starting to dance on the head of a pin here in terms of what goes on. For instance, I get emails on my city account, somebody complaining about something, and I'll be bringing one of those matters up tonight. Is that electioneering, or is that responding to a citizen's response? As far as
Don't ask that question here.
I very simply, no, I don't think it does depend on the answer. I think that if I'm answering as a counselor, I'm not election campaigning. However, you could say anything we say, including using the microphone that's in front of me right now, is election campaigning. I think we're getting into an area which should be governed by a person's personal morals and will be judged by the electorate who know what is going on. I think we're getting far too hung up on rules and regulations. The term Pharisee comes to mind.
Councillor Lemon, you are singing the song of many of us, but I have to say that the clerk is delivering this policy under the Municipal Elections Act, and it is a requirement that we have some policies around the use of public and publicly funded opportunities that current elected members of this council have. I think that it's in the view of fairness. I must admit, we do sometimes feel that we are dancing on the head of a pin, but don't shoot the messenger. This is just the message.
Well, I think as an example, I provide the electricity for my city internet. Now, if I'm claiming that, do I discount it by the amount of electricity that I consume during the year? I have a program on my computer that I bought called Word. Do I discount that? I think it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with campaign honesty. I agree that we shouldn't use anything that's owned by the city. I'd be more concerned if somebody was nailing a vote whoever sign on the side of a city bus.
There is certainly
Garbage truck.
Your comments are not falling on deaf ears. Ms. Van Alphen.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, Councillor Lemon, you are correct. It is subjective, and it is up to each candidate to govern themselves as they see fit, similar to the way you're asked to do under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. The policy in my role as clerk is to protect the municipality. So the municipality is prohibited expressly from providing contributions, and a number of municipalities, an increasing number, are giving some guidance to their staff so that they understand what that means. And that's primarily what this policy is designed to do. But with regards to what you choose to do in terms of whether something is electioneering or campaigning, you are correct. It is entirely in your purview to make that decision.
Thank you. Councillor Boddy and then Councillor McManaman.
I just remind my friend Councillor Lemon that it was this council that asked our clerk to put together that report 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
and as I recall, it was all of us that voted unanimously for it. So I don't think it's fair to really be attacking the clerk at the moment for bringing this stuff forward that we have asked her to provide. I think the public sort of thinks as councillors that we would have common sense and be able to figure out these answers ourselves. We're not giving them a good display.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I just noticed one item that I'm not sure, it came up during I believe it was a federal election, where a sign was displayed in a city facility that is also a private residence. Yes.
The apartment above the
Farmers Market.
Farmers Market.
And so I just, Councillor Lemon reminded me of that. It doesn't speak to that point, and perhaps it's just something about, because I don't think we could stop them from putting it up in their private residence.
No.
As a tenant.
As a tenant.
Right. So anyway, that might just be, it's an item H, but it just might be one to, as it comes forward, something around that.
I would argue as their landlord that we do have a right to determine what would happen there.
There we go. That can go around and around.
Yeah, exactly.
And we may be going around and around right now. Go to Ms. Van Alphen first here.
Until that is an actual case, I can't take, I couldn't speak, that is my initial reaction, but I would have to certainly look at it in more detail.
Sure.
With all of the facts before I could make a.
And you're bringing it back for a bylaw anyway, so if you could investigate that matter.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Twaddle.
Just to that point, I would suggest that if a property is leased, then the property is in control of the tenant, no longer in the control of the city. So unless the lease contains some specific language around that, it's the same as if I rent a house, my landlord can't tell me whose election sign I can or can't put on my property, and I believe that the same would apply to us if we're leasing property to another individual or organization. And I believe under the federal election law, that's clear.
Oh, we'll look forward to that. More for the head of our pin. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you for that report. We have a report from the Manager of Accounting Services on, this is Small Rural and Northern Municipal Infrastructure Fund Capital Fund Transfer Payment Agreement. Council's direction. Councillor McManaman.
Move the recommendation that we sign the agreement.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the purchasing agent with regards to a service radio system for Owen Sound Police Services. Councillor Wright.
Yes, this has been thoroughly looked at by Police Services Board, and I would move this recommendation.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor McManaman.
Sorry, it just says it's paid out of I believe I can't get the report up. It says out of a capital fund. This money, where's this money coming from is my question.
We'll refer to
Through
financial
you,
services.
Your Worship, I believe it's from the police reserves.
Great, thank you.
Reserve. Yes. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have a report from the engineering assistant with regards to International Women's Day Bridge Walk, 8th Street Bridge. Councillor Purdon?
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report with regards to the World Fiddle Day on 1st Avenue West, the 800 block on May 17th. Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I would move the recommendation to support.
Oh, goodness, yes, we will come back. Thank you. Thank you. We'll continue on with Fiddle Day. Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I guess this question is for the city manager. It talks about only having that road, closing one lane and having another lane, and I attended it last year, and in actual fact, I thought that was kind of dangerous. Yeah. People were sitting or standing, and that's a 50-kilometer road. People were zooming by, and literally inches away, people were sitting there or standing there, and I thought it was very confusing. And it does talk about we can look in the future about possibly closing part of that road, leaving the one end open and the other end open or something. And I'm just wondering, could we look at that for this year? It just because it was either this event or another one very similar. I can't recall which, but it was a dangerous situation. People were sitting there and cars were going by. So anyway, I'm just wondering why, if we could look at it sooner rather than later.
I'll go to Councillor Purdon and then the city manager.
I was at the event last year too, and there were no barricades. It was kind of a very loose arrangement. My understanding this year is that there'd be barricades put up around the area where the people would be sitting, so it would be clearly marked where the people are sitting and that people wouldn't be just kind of spilling out onto the street. I think that was, I don't even think last year there was even any intent to close off any part of the street. It's just that people put their lawn chairs up all over the place and just was pretty random. So this, to me, is a big improvement on last year. And I was pleased to see that there's also a plan to think about how to do that, maybe even more safely. But I think this will work, because it's pretty slow traffic when people know they're all there.
Good discussion. Ms. Corsi?
This report is obviously an attempt to respect the rights of the other users along that street. And that's a busy time of year, and I know the other users want to have the people that attend their facilities still have access for parking and driving through that area. So my suggestion is we do try it with the barriers. There's no question that as this ban shell becomes used more often and more frequently, that perhaps we need to look at other options, but respecting the fact that we have at least 3 significant users along that street that also need to have access for the people that go to their facilities. So it is a compromise. My suggestion is we see how well the barriers work, and report back to you perhaps at the end of this season on how that's progressing.
Okay, good discussion. To the motion. Do we have a mover for the motion? Councillor Lemon, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. And now we'll go back to the report from the engineering assistants with regards to the March Together Walkathon. Councillor Purdon.
I'll move the recommendation. It's a great fundraiser for United Way.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. It's promising to think that we're actually going to be outside more and more frequently and comfortably for some of us.
The snow's still here, Your Worship.
Yes. Bylaw, we have a series of boards and committees for approval. We have dealt with item 12C and 12C 4 and 5.
No, we only dealt with one issue of 4.
Oh, yes, that's correct, yeah. Should have tidied that up. Okay, so we have to deal with 12C 1, 2, and the balance of 12C 4 that's not dealing with the fluoridation issue. We have many speakers. Madam Clerk.
I would suggest for 12C4, in light of the city manager's comment about a request to defer one of the items, that you move if it's council's wish, the minutes of the Operations Advisory Committee and adopt the resolutions therein, save and accept item 6A, which is to be deferred to the council meeting on March 17, and item 6B, which has been previously dealt with this evening.
I would so move.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Now,
Items 1, 2, and 3.
we have items 12C 1, 2, and 3. Councillor Adair.
Also move the rest of the minutes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have one set of in-camera minutes. It's council's direction. Thank you. Motion to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We are at other business. Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last week I had the opportunity to attend with Virginia Eichhorn from the artistic director from the Art Gallery, and along with Councillor Adair, who was representing the Georgian Bay Symphony, Ontario Arts Council 50th anniversary, and they had a Queen's Park Day that we went down to discuss arts funding in Ontario. The Arts Council hands out $52 million a year or they did in 2012, 2013, and it has been consistent for 4 or 5 years. They funded 1,793 individual acts and 1,076 organizations. Georgian Bay Folk Society has been well-funded for years. Our art gallery is well-funded by the Ontario Arts Council. The symphony, I think David will talk about it in a minute. I would imagine Little Theatre, there's also lots of artists and lots of musicians that have been funded on their projects by the Ontario Arts Council. We went down and met with different members of provincial parliament, MPP Bill Walker, our local representative, Rod Jackson, who is from Barrie next door, and Lisa Thompson, who's from our neighbor to our southwest in Bruce Huron, to talk about, to encourage them to continue to fund arts. And it was a great opportunity to, of course, talk about Owen Sound, talk about the musical events, the theater events, the symphony events, the art events that we have up here. And I managed to steal a couple of minutes with the Michael Chan, the Minister of Culture, Sports, and Tourism, to brag about Owen Sound. It was a great opportunity to get the word out there, and it was an interesting feedback that a lot of people, or just about everybody, knows who we are and where we are and what we're about, which was pretty neat. I do add, I got a one comment, that none of this was at the cost of the City of Owen Sound or the taxpayers. I did it voluntarily, stayed with a friend for free. Councillor Adair was there, of course, on behalf of the Symphony, which was his boss, and so we were able to plug Owen Sound without any cost to the city. We in the Art Gallery also attended other meetings the day before that weren't related, and had a very good day there that will no doubt come to fruition at some time in the future. So it was neat to be in Queen's Park. It was neat to see the architecture of the building from my point of view, see how politics works in a different atmosphere than here, and it was a great day. I don't know if Councillor Adair's got anything to add.
Thank you. Councillor Adair.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a fantastic day. We went early in the morning, sort of got our briefing from the Ontario Arts Council, and then we headed off for meetings all day with MPPs. I actually also was able to meet with the Minister of Rural Affairs from Peterborough. It was interesting, although we were there representing cultural organizations, hockey did seem to be a theme throughout the day as we went to Barrie, the MPP from Barrie, and then the minister's, his riding is Peterborough, so hockey was discussed at part of the day. Actually, it wasn't the Georgian Bay Symphony that was paying my way down, it was Orchestras Canada, which my board at the Symphony was quite pleased that they had called and said, would I be interested in going down, and it was a very good experience. I certainly learned quite a bit more about the Ontario Arts Council outside of, your own sort of little bit of it. And I know that Councillor Bonney has also been involved with the Folk Society for years in the past. And all of these organizations benefit from the influx of provincial capital, provincial money that comes in here. One of the interesting stats that we learned is $82 billion worth of economic activity happens in the province of Ontario because of arts and culture. And it's a bigger sector than the automobile industry in the province. So it's sort of, we were charged by the Ontario Arts Council to go out and spread that message to the MPPs when they start to sit down and talk about the budget. And I think the reason that the Arts Council had asked all of the various people to come down is because we were able to tell our stories about how that grant from the Ontario Arts Council affects us in particular. As an arts organization, we were able to tell real stories and put a name to a face with the MPPs. It was quite interesting. Went to sit through a question period. Bill Walker, our MPP, was able to get us into the gallery, the members gallery, and after seeing an hour of question period, I only need to now see a dog fight and a bull fight, and I will have all my blood sports ticked off for the rest of my life. It was very interesting. I did comment to Councillor Body, I said if we behave that way at this council chamber, we would probably be all run out of office, but it's a whole different system that they work on under there. It was a great experience, and I was quite happy to also be representing the city while I was down there.
Terrific. Sounds like it looked out also, I was following your tweets and your Facebook postings, and it looked like a really very involved day and a very busy day with a lot of positive discussions and no doubt an opportunity to share some successes and get some new insights. So congratulations on a good day. Councillor Purdon.
Just also want to note that Councillor Dare was on CBC in the morning, so I heard him say something about where you want to live. About Owen.
Excellent. Those are the things that's what we do.
The mayor sent me a list of things.
Don't forget. So good stuff. That's always good news. Owen Sound was well represented in Queen's Park and around Toronto last week, that's for sure. Thank you. We have a couple of other items. Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the concerns I have is a motion that was passed at the last meeting of council. And I think the motion pertained to the oncology department at the Regional Health Center. I think that, from my understanding, the way the motion was put, this does not preclude us from making a commitment in 2015. We can't commit the future council, naturally, but we can get it on the list of items that should be funded. I feel very strongly that we should be making some kind of a contribution. I know we were asked for $500,000. I'm not saying that that's what we should put in. I am saying that we should stand up and support the Regional Health Center. There was an article in, I think, Thursday or Friday's paper about a new oncologist who is come to Owen Sound. And if we want to provide the care that's necessary for people in our community, we need to have the doctors and medical staff. We also need to have the facilities that they need. I understand part of the reason for the motion was the fact that this year the budget had been pretty well put to bed at the time when this came up. And I understand that, and I don't have a problem with that. But I do, I was told I do not need to make a notice of motion to rescind the previous bylaw, that my bylaw would not be, or my motion would not be in conflict with the motion that was approved at the last council meeting to make no payment this year. However, I believe it should be included in the budget for next year. I realize we cannot reopen the 2014 budget without delaying it even further. And, but I do believe we should make a commitment. All of, or majority of council, if not all of us, saw the oncology department at the hospital, and we saw the chemotherapy area, and I had cancer. I could have been one of the people who had to sit in those chairs and receive with medication, severe medication, without any privacy or any ability to talk in private or whatever. So I am biased. It's not a conflict of interest because my cancer was removed. But I really believe, and I'm going to make a motion that we request staff in preparation for the 2015 budget deliberations that a report be brought in on funding for the oncology department. And I'm not putting a number on this because I don't know what the right number is. I know we contribute $160,000 through our county levy, but I think we should be putting some more in and to support this most excellent project. That's my motion.
We have a motion on the floor. So this motion is for consideration at the 2015 council budget deliberations. Ms. Corsi?
Your worship, just for clarity, we often have items that council asks us to make sure are on the list of things to consider for the budget. And that's, I guess, kind of what I was expecting. To do a report on this without further direction from council would probably be somewhat difficult.
I don't think it's a report. I think it's it's to be a point that there will be a line item for discussion by the council for 2015 budget consideration. That's right. Yeah. So it's
I'm not asking for a detailed staff report. No. I'm not asking for an analysis. I mean, you could write 27 volumes on the incidence of cancer and the impact. I'm just asking that it be a line item as a first step. I realize that the request we received was too late in the process for 2014.
Thank you. Motion is on the floor. Discussion. Councillor Adair?
Just to clarify, because we do sometimes, as we start preparing budget, ask to have things put on, but we're being asked to have something put on the budget for an entirely new council that I guess we're not committing a new council to anything.
It's for consideration.
We're just asking that this, amongst other items, be on the budget deliberations for 2015, whoever might be here. Okay, I'm just trying to clarify that in my head so I know what we're...
Mm-hmm. Okay, to the motion. All those in favor? 2, 3, 4. Opposed? That motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon.
That's number one. Number two pertains to the specialized transit. I brought to the city manager's attention last week the fact that we are in conflict with the Ontarians with Disabilities Act. That specialized transit apparently was not operating on Saturdays between, I believe it was 11:30 to 1:30, which is non-compliance with the ODA regulations as of January the 1st of last year. I really feel that this has to, I've asked the city manager to deal with it. She's going to meet with someone, but now I've been told that you're not able to book on Saturdays either. And I'm going to ask that that be added to the list and make council aware that these are things that the province is going to start enforcing. And we must be in compliance. It's not a you may, you shall. Mm-hmm. And I was a little shocked when I found out about the 2 hours each Saturday that in the middle of the day, when most people are moving around, that we were not offering the service. I don't need any motions or anything.
Okay.
Council's information.
We will certainly have some feedback on that. I'll go to the city manager.
As Councillor Lemon has indicated, I will be meeting to discuss this, but because we've had this as a public issue, I think it has to be noted that it may not, in fact, be in violation, but let's find out the facts.
Sure. Absolutely. It's a good discussion to ensure that we are that we are compliant. Absolutely.
Your Worship, I'm sorry, that remark that we may not, the act is very specific. It says it has to be operated the same hours as the other.
This is something that I think we will get a report back on that is going to be very specific. It may not hurt all of council to have a presentation on the AODA, and so that we all have a clearer understanding. Because I certainly, for one, do not have a really in-depth understanding of the AODA. And Councillor Lemon, you've worked with the Accessibility Advisory Committee for so long that you probably have a much better understanding of it. I, for one, do not. And I think it would be something that would be of benefit not only to all of council, but I think of interest to those people at home that tune in regularly to council to understand the AODA and the issues around compliance that we are working with. Councillor McManaman, did you?
No, thank you, Your Worship. I'll let it,
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other last-minute items of other business? Ms. Corsi, LED.
I hesitate to ask, but in the correspondence for action, I'm not sure we actually addressed a couple of requests in there. So if we could turn, for instance, to item 11C.
Oh, thank you. I'll go to Councillor McManaman.
No, my motion did address, that was meant to address the...
Was it meant to address?
Yes.
So we can assume we're not doing it?
Right.
Okay, thank you. My apologies, I just needed to clarify that.
All is clarified. Thank you.
So the answer is no.
There are no other items of other business. Could I have a motion that the committee rise? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We're in formal session. A resolution, please, moving the adopting proceedings in committee of the whole, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Adair, that the actions taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which no notice was previously given, and other business be confirmed by this council.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Any notices of motion? New business by resolution, bylaws.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Adair, that bylaw numbers 2014-24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 be passed and enacted.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried, and we are now adjourned. Thank you. Have a good evening.